What's going on, guys? Dare here with Fantasy Football Advice, coming at you with another fantasy football video. Today, we're going through everything you need to know for week 3 of the NFL season. So we'll go through the injuries, we'll go through the pivot plays, and we'll go through all the news and notes around the NFL. But if you have two players that are ranked very close alike, and you're not sure who to start, make sure you use our rankings available on our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. Link is always in the description box below, but let's get right into it. We'll start with the biggest news, which is obviously Antonio Brown. Everyone's talking about it. And with Antonio Brown, he's no longer on the Patriots, which opens up opportunities for Julian Edelman and also Josh Gordon. Unfortunately, this game is going to be a blowout. And with a blowout game, we can't quite expect the Patriots to always utilize their best weapons. Julian Edelman, Josh Gordon. Sony Michel, on the other hand, should have a very good game. Just keep in mind, he has 0 targets on the season. 0 targets, so the floor. Typically, it would be very low. In this game, in a blowout, they're over 20-point favorites. He has a very good chance to score, quite possibly more than once. As for Antonio Brown and what I expect for him, I'm not sure he will get an NFL team, at least not anytime soon. Usually, if the Patriots release you, it's the kiss of death. Every team is trying to replicate what the Patriots do, and if they release a player, it usually speaks volumes. And the rest of the NFL is listening, believe me. But we're just going to have to wait and see on how this story develops. Let's move on, though. T.Y. Hilton is apparently questionable. I don't have an update right now, but his status is up in the air. There isn't a player who I would just say is an auto start if he's out. There hasn't been a clear-cut wide receiver 2 in this offense. His target market share is high, but it's very doubtful that the targets will all go to one person rather than be dispersed amongst the team. It's a quad injury. I don't think it'll hold him back, so if he does play, fire him up as a wide receiver 2. Just make sure you're watching the news to find out if he can be locked in your lineup or not. For Kansas City, the running back situation, Damian Williams ruled out of action for week 3. LaShawn McCoy, they're going to be cautious about overloading him, aka not going to get a significant workload. So Darwin Thompson, he does have some value. It's a bad matchup though. Baltimore's defense is not a joke. They aren't looking as good as they have looked in previous seasons, but starting the number 2 option at the running back position against a defense which is definitely top half in the league and more susceptible to the pass is not a smart start. We still have LaShawn McCoy ranked as a flex player, so if you do have him and you need a flex, a high upside flex, put him in there. Just be cautiously optimistic. And it appears Josh Jacobs will play. He has not been used in passing situations often at all this season, which is very concerning. The floor, it's going to be low, and it's against a tough Minnesota defense. So while he does have a chance to score any week, if he's dealing with injuries, his snaps are likely to decrease on a player who already was getting very little passing down work. His floor is microscopic this week, to say the least. That's not to say he can't overcome it and have a good game, so he is worthy of a start if you do have him on your roster. But starting him confidently as anything more than a flex is going to be a dangerous move. Marlon Mack is questionable to start against the Falcons, which is a good matchup. However, a hobbled Mack does have to be dropped in the rankings. If he does not suit up, remember this video is being recorded before the Sunday morning release. Jordan Wilkins, Nyheim Hines, their options, Wilkins being the better of the two. Wilkins has actually looked good this season, but there's no way you can start him if Mack does suit up and play against the Falcons. Tyrell Williams is expected to play, was not listed on Friday's injury report. It's just not really a good matchup though. You could start him in the flex, hope he bags a long touchdown, but Minnesota just really doesn't give those up very often. So while he has been hot off these first 2 weeks, it's very likely that streak's going to end this week. Unsure who to start in his place, check the rankings available on our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. Link in description. But let's move forward. So James Conner, it appears that he's playing. I know that doesn't excite a lot of people, and it wouldn't excite me if I owned him. I don't own any shares of him. And I say that because this 49ers defense is very much improved from a season ago. And if he's not 100%, there's a chance that his snaps could decrease, his efficiency could go down, and he's already, let's be honest, not been producing at a very high level for your fantasy team. Due to projected workload though, we still have him ranked as a mid to high end RB2. Just be mindful of his range of outcomes. Courtland Sutton will be suiting up for action. He faces the Packers this week, which, although in recent years has seemed like a defense to target, especially with Aaron Rodgers' ability to rack up the scoreboard, it's best you leave him on the bench if possible. possible. We don't even have him ranked as a flex this week, partly due to injury, partly due to matchup. And even with Sanders, yes, he's been performing incredibly, but this matchup certainly has trap game written all over it. Alshon Jeffrey at the time of recording is questionable to play, and I understand that if he does play, a lot of people will be very interested in starting him, the potential upside just due to the lack of weapons that the Eagles have right now, aka Deshaun Jackson being out. Keep in mind though, a hobbled Jeffrey is not a Jeffrey you want in your lineup. He already has had a severe lack of volume, a history of soft tissue injuries, and a potential matchup with Darius Slay. So leave him on the bench at all costs. The only player you really want to be starting in this game as a receiver is Zach Ertz. Cam Newton ruled out, and that's a good thing for both Cam Newton owners and the owners of Curtis Samuel and DJ Moore. A lot of people are using that as a reason to drop both of those receivers in the rankings, but for us, the only two logical options are keeping them where you have them typically ranked or raising them, because how can you be much worse than what Cam Newton showed us on Thursday Night Football? Kyle Allen is getting this start over Greer, likely due to his familiarity in the offense. And although we did see more highlight plays in training camp from Greer, Kyle Allen will be able to get the ball in the receiver's hands, so we still have them ranked as back-end wide receiver 2s, that being DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel. Mark Andrews, he's expected to play. You know, if you have him, you're putting him in your lineup. He's a top 5 tight end virtually every week. And in a game with the highest over-under and against a team that can really rack up the points, you don't need me to tell you, start him over almost everybody not named Ertz, Kittle, Kelsey. Jimmy Graham at the tight end position, he's also looking to play. He had a groin issue throughout the week. He's touchdown or bust, but then again, that's about the same you can say for almost every tight end. And I understand that this Packers offense has not looked good whatsoever, 4.3 yards per play, but they face Minnesota and Chicago, so give them a little bit of a pass there. However, I still don't think Graham should be put in most lineups. A streaming option, yes, potentially, but nothing more than that. One last player, and sorry to bounce back to the running back position, but it's going to be Devin Singletary, who appeared to have a good matchup against Cincinnati. They were 6-point favorites at home, so you always want to start a home favorite running back, so that would have been a really good spot for Singletary. Frank Gore is going to be taking his place, and Frank Gore is a viable flex option. No, the efficiency is likely not going to be there. Remember, he is very, very old, but the touches, those are a guarantee, and in the NFL, touches over everything. So start Gore as a high floor flex play, but that's going to do it for the injury updates. Let's talk some snaps. When comparing week 1 to week 2, I just always want to look out for stuff that's alarming, and what I saw was Tariq Cohen going from 70% of snaps, mostly lining up at the slot position, to 38% of snaps, and that's very alarming. If you're a Tariq Cohen owner, I would look to unload him. Hopefully he has a good game. This offense, it's not in a position to put up a lot of points, so the odds of him scoring are unlikely, but if he does have a game in which he gets several receptions, try to unload him, even if it's not at the full cost of what you paid for on draft day. Duke Johnson, his snaps went remarkably down, obviously in favor of Carlos Hyde, and I think this is going to always be a game script thing. I think in games where the Texans are trailing or need to be in any form of hurry-up offense, you're going to see a lot more of Duke Johnson, a lot more work in the receiving game, but they do really like Carlos Hyde, and that's apparent. Fortunately, this game script does have Duke Johnson written all over it, so if you have him, you can start him fairly confidently, but the snaps are certainly telling of what the Texans plan to do with these two running backs moving forward. Austin Eckler and Justin Jackson, what was initially expected to be somewhat of a timeshare where Justin Jackson was in on clear rushing situations, early down situations, goal line situations, it actually ended up being a complete dominance in snaps and touches from Austin Eckler. While Justin Jackson has looked good in limited work, his snap counts through 2 weeks are at just 26%, which shows no sign of life when it comes to fantasy. Austin Eckler, through 2 weeks, has been extremely consistent with his snaps being at 75% and 73%. So while Melvin Gordon is out, Austin Eckler is a premier option at the running back position. That's a fact. One situation to monitor is Matt Breida versus Raheem Mostert. Mostert played on 47% of snaps last week. Compare that to Matt Breida's 29% and you have a situation you want to monitor. It's also worth noting Jeff Wilson Jr. They said they wanted to use him at the goal line. He got 5 of 6 goal line carries, so they certainly did that. And this has committee written all over it. To understand exactly who we're going to be able to trust in our lineups week over week, we do have to monitor the situation. And as it stands today, Mostert was getting the majority of the snaps snaps, Breida is the favorite to lead this backfield, and Jeff Wilson Jr. certainly has a role in the red zone. It's also worth noting, Tevin Coleman shed his walking boot today. As for a return, that is still up in the air. At the wide receiver position, we saw Marquez Valdes-Scantling go from 66% to 87%, definitely trending upward. That's what we like to see, so if you have him, hold on to him. There still is some upside. There were 2 tough matchups, Minnesota, Chicago. The potential breakout and the opportunity is still there, and this is a very good sign. Devontae Parker went from 76% to 92%, and I know he's on Miami, but he is still top 5 in air yards, and while he's only converted that for a measly 75 yards, when the rest of the numbers are there, we do have to take notice. If he is on your waivers, I guess he's worth a claim, but it's unsure and unclear how exactly that is going to translate with Josh Rosen. Definitely something to keep an eye on, but nothing to lose sleep over. As expected, Deebo Samuel took a severe drop in snaps. While he was the most productive receiver and likely earned more playing time, the news came out with Pettis getting more healthy, his snaps would decrease, and we saw that exactly. Dante Pettis went from 3% to 49%, and Deebo Samuel went from 88% of snaps to a mere 40% of snaps. His performance certainly could have landed him more time on the field, but it's still unclear because Pettis is only getting healthier at this point, and if it continues to trend that way, Deebo Samuel's role may decrease. That's going to do it for extreme cases to monitor, and that'll also do it for this video. Good luck this week, guys. If you did enjoy this video, please hit that like button. If you're unsure who to start, check out our rankings on our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com, link in description. There are a ton of other perks with signing up as well. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. We thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.